Yo, what's good? I appreciate y'all for tuning in. In this video, we are going to talk about some good legal and overall financial discussion on how people should move. I'm not even going to tell y'all where I'm leaning towards, but hey, we're going to dive into that. Today, I'm going to give a breakdown on inheritance. When you get an inheritance, how is it treated when you're married? And we're going to kick it around and talk about, hey, is there any obligation for your spouse or significant other to get any of your inheritance? If you're new to the channel, I'm Marcus, the Debt Free Dad, where we're talking finances, attorney reactions, current events, and all of that stuff in between. I probably should cut the phone off because people sending me messages. But hey, hit the like button so this video can get out to more people, and definitely subscribe to the channel if you like this content. Always got to give a disclaimer. I'm a licensed attorney, but not your attorney, so this is not legal or financial advice. Now, okay, a lot of times I come up with topic for shows based on the questions that I asked on the community board, right? And I don't even know how I thought about this question. I might have been talking to one of my homeboys and the topic came up, but the question came up about receiving an inheritance and how is that money treated. Okay, so let's break down that aspect of how the money is treated for the inheritance first, because it's relatively easy, is the shortest discussion. Now, when you are married, right? You have a spouse and you receive an inheritance. That money is treated different from any other property that you obtain during the course of the marriage. Generally, marital property is defined as any property that's obtained during the course of the marriage. However, most states, if not all states, have carved out an exception when it comes to an inheritance. Once you get an inheritance, if spouse A gets an inheritance, that inheritance that spouse A got is not marital property, it's actually separate property. Now, it depends on how you treat it. You have to treat it as separate property. Well, DFD, what does that mean? In short, if I get an inheritance for $100,000, by law, that is my money. That is separate property. I'm not obligated to share it with my spouse or put it in a joint account or anything. Now, if you want to keep that money separate from marital property, it will behoove you to deposit that money into an account that is solely under your control or custody. That's what they like to say in the legal nuance. That's under your control or custody. And the reason that is because the court has to be able to identify that money, where it went. They have to be able to look at those funds and identify those funds expressly as the inherited funds and be able to classify them as separate property. So, where does a problem occur? A problem occurs when you do what we call in the legal world commingle the funds. Commingling the funds just means I get an inheritance. Legally, that's my money. I don't have to share it. It's not marital property. But instead of putting it into a separate account that only I have the control and custody of, let's say I put my $100,000 inheritance into a joint account, right? Now that money's in a joint account. The wifey and I both have access to that money to spend it or whatever. Now that that money's in a joint account, let's say 1 month go by. I put $100,000 in. There was already $1,000 in that account. So it's $101,000 in that account. Next month go by, there's $97,000 in that account. If the court were to look at that account with the $97,000 in it, those funds have been commingled. Now, it's probably logical that the court would be able to identify and say that, you know what, this $97,000 that's remaining in this account is probably separate property and is the proceeds of the inheritance. That'll be easy to prove. But that $3,000 that's missing, that's just kind of chopped up as money that's out in the ether because you commingled those funds with your spouse. So that's how it works in short. So generally, if you want to have those funds separate, you have to keep them under your custody and control. And it can get really weird where you get a $50,000 inheritance. You put that money into a separate account that's only under your control or custody. 6 months later, you take $15,000 out and put it in your marital home that you and your wife have, or you and your spouse have, for renovations. You've effectively commingled $15,000 of that $50,000 inheritance. And hey, that's just chopped it up to the game. Once you put it into that house, that's a marital asset. That money is a marital asset. So if something happens, it would all be counted as marital assets, and your individual money that you got from inheritance is 15K less. So that's the legal breakdown, right? But this question that I posed was actually an interesting one. And anytime I pose a question like, it's interesting because anytime I pose a question of what should you do with money with your spouse, it's always a mixed bag of reactions. Some people say do A, B, C. But in short, the example that was given was, wait, before I even dive into the example, let's get what we all can agree on, okay? If you are married and you and your spouse are cool, you don't hate each other, y'all have a generally cool relationship, and you all have debt, right? The scenario I gave was you're a couple who's married, you don't have any debt outside of a mortgage, you're financially stable, and spouse A parents pass away and they leave him $200,000, right? So that was the scenario. But let's talk about what we all can agree on. All right. If you're a couple and y'all are a happy couple, y'all work relatively well together, y'all don't want to gouge each other's eyes out at night, and you have financial problems, I think generally everyone would agree we should use that money to get out of this debt so we can have a better financial situation. I don't think we'll disagree with that. If you disagree with that, let me know in the comments. But I think across the board, that's a consensus that we all can agree with, okay? Scenario number two that I think we all will agree with, and y'all let me know in the comments if you don't. If you loathe your spouse, like your spouse get on your nerves, and the only reason you there is because it's cheaper to have her as a roommate or him as a roommate as opposed to trying to get a separate place. If you actually hate your spouse and a person A gets an inheritance, I think that we all can agree in that scenario. Legally, that's your money. You should probably keep your money in a separate account that you have custody and control over, and you may want to use 20 stacks of that money to go hire you an attorney so you can try to get out of that situation. So I think those are the two situations where everyone generally agree. If you're a couple and everything is good but y'all have some debt, I think generally most people would agree with, let's use this inheritance to clean up our debt and help our financial situation. I think most people agree with that. If you're a couple and y'all want to drop kick each other off the top rope, I think everyone will agree with, hey, you need to keep your inheritance as your money, have a little nest egg, maybe get an attorney so you can get out of that situation. So I don't think we'll find too many people who disagree with that. If you do, like I said, leave a comment and let me know. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let's recap the scenario that we got to discuss, all right? Y'all a couple. Y'all been married for whatever, 10, 15 years. Y'all are financial mutants. Y'all do things different from the norm, okay? The only debt that you all have is a mortgage. No car, no student loan, no credit cards, nothing. And like I said, y'all go on vacations. Y'all enjoy each other company. Y'all go out on dates. All of that good stuff, okay? So that's the scenario. Spouse A, parents pass away and leave spouse A $200,000. Now, the question is, should spouse A share that money or use that money for the furtherance of the couple, people who are a couple? All right, then the options I gave was option A, hey, option A was, hell, we don't need the money. And because we don't need the money, and it's an inheritance that my parents left me, there's no real need to really share the money or put it in a joint account. Now, option B was I'd probably buy my spouse a gift or take them on a nice vacation or something like that. But that's about it. Option C was I'll take the 200 racks and put a lot of it towards the mortgage so we can become debt free. Now, I'll tell you, it's funny. At one point, everything was equal. Option A, B, and C were all equal. Now that we had some votes come in, the leading vote getter is put the money on the mortgage. Okay, but I gotta give my take on this, all right? And I might pull up some of the comments, right? But this is my view of it. I think that an inheritance is an inheritance. The reason that there was an exception in the law that an inheritance isn't marital property, that it's the property of the individual who receives it, it's there for a reason. So, like, and someone told me, because I asked other people to get their opinion, and they said, well, you're just thinking like a lawyer because you're like, well, this is the law is the law. But I agree. I don't think a spouse is entitled to anything from an inheritance. I'll be honest. Lord forbid, knock on wood, if someone in my wife's family passed away, I'm not going to even ask about a damn inheritance because I really don't care. The only question I would ask is, yo, is everybody good? Do y'all got money to cover the funeral? Because if not, DFD going to have to step in and make sure, hey, we do what we need to do to take care of family. But I don't think there's any obligation. There's no legal obligation to share. There's no moral obligation to share. Me personally, if someone passed away in my wife's family, I wouldn't even ask about it. I don't give a damn if my wife's father left her $2 million. I wouldn't be like, yo, what's up with that $2 million though? Like, I would honestly care less. It was hers to do with it. Which, if she wanted to put it in her account, so what? I don't care. If she wanted to put it in a joint account, if she wanted to buy DFD a cool motorcycle, I really don't care what she does with it, because in the scenario I gave, we aren't hard up for money. Okay. So that's kind of my position. Now, it was funny when I went through the comments because, it never fails. Anytime there's comments, and I get it, hey, I get it. People are big on the, hey, according to the Bible, we're to operate as one, and it's all of ours. And I talked to a lot of people, and I particularly asked the females because I wanted to see what their point of view was, because I kind of knew where all the fellas stood. But I asked around, and I said, let's take yourself out of it because it's too personal. If you're married and you have a daughter, and you and your spouse pass away, would you want your daughter to control those assets, or would you want your daughter and her husband to control those assets? And 100% of the time, everyone who said, let's share it, when I switched the context around and made it their daughter, they all paused and was like, I don't know. They all changed their mind and changed their tune. And it's funny, I've actually spoken to people, and they've told me, and they're married, and they told me that their parents was like, hey, if anything happened to us, what we leave you is yours, not you and your husband's or you and your wife's. So I think that the law is written that way for a reason. I 100% agree. And I think it's corny to ask, personally. I think it would be corny to ask in that scenario where y'all aren't in financial despair, like, yo, what's up with that insurance money? I just think that's kind of wild to even go down that road and ask. And if somebody asked me that, I would probably look at them sideways like, I don't know about that question. That question is kind of bothering me. Go stay over there for a while I figure out what I want to do with you in that question in this situation. But I think that's the dope way of putting it. But there was a lot of folks who were talking about, and I get it. Hey, respect to y'all. It is what it is. They say, they went from a biblical standpoint. Well, in the Bible, husband and wife are one, so it's all ours. We're going to put it in a joint account. And that's fair if you want to follow that approach. The only thing I'm going to say, if that's your logic and you're sticking to the Bible says we come together as one, and because we come together as one as both of us, do a Google search and see what the Bible says about following the law of the land. Okay? Because, hey, the Bible can be contradictory. So do a Google search and see what the Bible says about the law that's on the books. There's a it's I can pull it up on my phone because I looked it up, but there are so many verses where they talk about, hey, the law of the land is consistent and is the equivalent of following what's in the good book. So under that scenario, if the law says that an inheritance is separate property, are you obligated to combine it or commingle it with your wife, share it, split it with your spouse? I don't know. Y'all people who use the we are one according to the Bible, y'all let me know because there's a little bit of conflict there. I personally don't think it's any obligation. I wouldn't ever expect my wife to give me any inheritance that she had, and vice versa. If she wanted to do something dope for me, that's cool. But if she didn't, that's cool too. The other thing, let's just use a little bit of common sense, right? Because we got to really look at this scenario, right? Let's lose common sense. If you have a couple who is married and the only debt that they have is their mortgage and they're financially okay, there's a strong probability that both parties in that relationship are relatively good with money. Okay. So in my situation, if I inherited 100 stacks, I may put some in the joint account, I may not. It doesn't make a difference. Even if I put it in my own personal account, which is my right because legally, lawfully, it's my individual money that I inherited. Even if I put it in my individual account, in the event that we needed it, we wanted to do a renovation, some emergency came up that was bigger than that emergency fund, which I think DFG would be like, nah, you need to save up that money. We need to save up that money with our paycheck because you're not touching my money to get the roof fixed. Oh no, like that would be absolutely crazy. I don't think anybody who's in a good financial situation like that would think like that. I don't know. It's funny because a lot of people were talking about it's both of ours, but I also look at it as you should try to carry out the wishes of the decedent. You know what I mean? If I know that, the person who passed away was like, yo, just use the money to the best of your ability. Okay, I'm cool with that. I can do whatever the hell I please with the money. But I also know, hey, what's going on? Thanks for jumping in the live. But I also know if the person was like, hey, if something happened to me, this is your money. And hey, I'm going to respect those wishes as well. But, at the end of the day, it's left to the person to do whatever the hell they want. There is no legal obligation for you to share anything, with your spouse to commingle those funds. I talked about all the legal jargon in the beginning, but, I think that's just the easiest way to do it. Like, I wouldn't even ask. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I wouldn't even ask my wife, like, hey, did we get anything? Was there an insurance policy? Did you inherit something? I honestly wouldn't ask because I really don't give a damn because it's her inheritance to do with it what she wants. That it is what it is. That's my position. That's the position I'm taking. That's the position I'm sticking with. I feel the same way. I feel like if you get asked about that, that's kind of crazy. But like I said in the beginning, if everything is good in the relationship and y'all do got some debt y'all need to clean up, I think everybody would agree. Let's use some of this inheritance money to clean up the debt. If y'all loathe each other and y'all want to drop kick each other off the top rope, like I said, hey, keep your money to yourself, get an attorney, figure out that mess you in, and do what you need to do to get out of it. I'm just being honest. In the words of Papa DFD, he told me everybody should have enough money stashed away to get their own place just in case. My father taught me that. He told me that when I was young too. I think it was like 15 or 16, and I was like, okay, that was weird. Then when I got older, I was like, man, Papa DFD dropped some gems right there. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do y'all think that, hey, it's yours to do with it what you want? Do you have an obligation to share it with your spouse? You can just do whatever you want with it. Y'all let me know what y'all think. And flip that context around. Put it on, take you out of it. If you left your child an inheritance, would you want them to control that or would you want them to share it with their spouse? me personally, I'm not here, so I don't give a damn what they do with it. I hope they just do something that's smart and that's right, and they're a good steward with it. But that's my take. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely enjoy the video on the screen. There's going to be more content related to finances and attorney reactions.